The rain was lashing against the window pane that night, a relentless rhythm matching the turmoil in Arav's heart. He sat alone in his room, the single lamp casting long shadows, illuminating the crisp, cruel edges of the rejection letter in his hands. His dream, the one he had breathed and bled for, the dream of becoming a professional athlete, had just been shattered. Again, this wasn't his first taste of failure, not by a long shot, but this one felt different. It cut deeper, maybe because he had poured every last ounce of himself into it this time. Every drop of sweat on the track, every sleepless night spent replaying strategies, every sacrifice made, and still, it wasn't enough. A hollow ache spread through his chest, a profound exhaustion that went beyond physical fatigue. He was just tired of pretending he was fine, tired of smiling through the disappointment, tired of trying. He let the letter slip from his fingers, a silent white flag drifting to the floor. "Maybe I'm just not meant for this," he whispered into the empty room. Outside, life went on. Cars hissed on the wet pavement. But inside, his world had ground to a halt. He switched off the light and lay in the darkness, staring at the unseen ceiling. His mind became a cruel cinema, replaying every failure, every stumble, every single moment he had fallen short. All his life, he'd heard it. "You have so much talent, Arav. You have incredible potential." But what good was potential without proof? It felt like a hollow promise, a meaningless compliment. The thought of quitting slithered into his mind. The word tasted bitter on his tongue, but the idea behind it, it felt like relief. A deep, sighing release from the pressure. For once, he just wanted to stop. The next morning, the familiar pull of his running shoes was gone. He didn't go for his usual pre-dawn run. Instead, he sat by the window, watching the last of the storm clouds drift away, leaving a pale, washed-out sky. That's when his mother walked in, a quiet presence in his loud internal chaos. She placed a steaming cup of tea on the table beside him. She didn't look at him with pity, but with a calm, steady understanding that felt more comforting than any words of encouragement. "You look tired," she said softly. "Do you want to talk about it?" Arav just shook his head, unable to form the words. She sat beside him, her gaze also on the clearing sky. "Do you remember?" she began, her voice gentle. "When you were little and you fell off your new bicycle, you scraped your knee, and you cried, and you refused to ride it again. But the very next day, you were back on that seat, wobbly but determined, because you wanted to prove to yourself that you could do it. You didn't find your strength when you finally rode around the block without falling. You found it the moment you decided to try again." Her words hung in the quiet room long after she left. Arav sat there, the tea growing cold, her story echoing in his mind. Strength wasn't in the victory, it was in the decision to get back up after every fall. That evening, as dusk settled, something inside him shifted. It wasn't a sudden burst of confidence, but a tiny, flickering spark of determination that refused to be extinguished. He found his running shoes, laced them up, and stepped out into the cool, damp air. The track was empty, glistening under the glow of the streetlights. The rain had stopped, but the air was still heavy, silent. He started to jog, slowly at first. His legs ached, protesting the movement. His lungs burned, reminding him of his fatigue, but he kept going. Each step felt like a small, personal victory. He wasn't running to win a race this time. He was running to find himself again. And with every stride, a strange sense of peace began to settle over him. Over the next few weeks, Arav began to rebuild himself, piece by piece. He trained in the quiet hours of the morning and the late hours of the evening, without telling anyone. He let go of the crushing need for perfection and started chasing progress. He wasn't trying to be the best anymore. He was simply trying to be better than the person he was yesterday. Some days were good. He felt light on his feet, powerful. Some days were awful. Every step was a struggle, but he showed up anyway. One evening, during a particularly grueling training session, his body gave out. He collapsed onto the track, utterly exhausted. His coach rushed over, his face etched with concern. "Arav, you can't keep pushing yourself like this," he said, helping him sit up. Arav looked up, sweat dripping from his face, and said between ragged breaths, "I'm not pushing to prove anything to anyone else. I'm pushing because this is where I find my strength." His coach looked at him for a long moment, then a quiet smile spread across his face as he helped him to his feet. Months passed, the regional trials were announced again. Arav hesitated before looking at the registration form. The ghost of his last failure still lingered, a cold shadow in the back of his mind, but this time he wasn't afraid of it. He finally understood that failure wasn't a wall designed to stop him. It was a doorway. You just had to be brave enough to walk through it, again and again, until you found your way to the other side. On the day of the trials, the stadium was electric. The air buzzed with nervous energy and raw ambition. Runners stretched and warmed up, their faces masks of intense focus. Arav stood at the starting line, his heart pounding a powerful rhythm against his ribs. He took a deep breath, and in that moment, he remembered every painful morning, every ounce of doubt, every time he had felt like he wasn't enough. But now, he wasn't running away from that pain. He was running with it, using it as fuel. He whispered to himself, "This is my moment." The starting whistle blew. He exploded from the blocks, his feet finding their rhythm on the track, a perfect union of power and grace. Halfway through the race, the familiar burn of fatigue began to claw at him, but this time, nothing inside him roared Lodara quiet, steady inner voice he hadn't heard so clearly before. It wasn't shouting at him to win. It was whispering, "Don't stop, you're stronger than you think." As he crossed the finish line, he didn't immediately look at the scoreboard. He bent over, hands on his knees, gasping for air. A genuine smile spread across his face. He had given everything he had, and for the first time, that felt like enough. When the results were finally announced, he had come in second place, a silver medal. But it wasn't about the number or the color of the medal anymore. It was about what it represented. He had found his strength, not in this victory, but in the moments he had chosen not to quit. Later that evening, he walked home, the medal cool against his chest. His mother met him at the door, her eyes shining with pride. "You did it," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Arav smiled, a calm, knowing smile. "I found it," he replied. She looked at him, puzzled. "Found what?" He took a deep breath and looked past her, into the home that had seen him at his best and his worst. "My strength." From that day on, Arav's definition of strength changed forever. He saw it everywhere in his father waking up before dawn every day for work, in his motorist's endless patience, in his friends who kept smiling through their own silent battles. He realized that real strength isn't loud or boastful. It doesn't need an audience. It's quiet, it's steady, and it lives inside the moments when you choose to keep going, even when every fiber of your being is telling you to stop. Years later, Arav became a coach. He taught young athletes not just the mechanics of running, but the art of believing in themselves. One day, a nervous young runner came to him and said, "Coach, I don't think I'm strong enough." Arav smiled, a deep, genuine smile that reached his eyes. He remembered his own journey, the rain, the letter, the quiet conversation with his mother. "You don't find your strength in winning," he told the boy. "You find it in the moment you decide to stand up after falling. That's when you meet the real you." That night, Arav sat on the same balcony where his journey of rediscovery began. He looked up at the vast, stardusted sky and thought about how far he had come. The rejections, the pain, the fear, they hadn't been obstacles. They had been the path. He realized that life doesn't hand you strength as a gift. It builds it inside you through struggle. So, whenever you feel lost, defeated, or just too tired to go on, remember Arav's story. Strength isn't an emotion you wait to feel. It's an action you choose to take. It's something you discover when you have every reason to give up, and yet you still choose to move forward. The moment you refuse to quit is the moment you find your strength. Thank you so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more content that we hope will inspire and uplift you. We'll see you in the next one.